And so we start with our first panel. And the first panel is titled Being Respectfully Disruptive in the Pursuit of Gender Equality. I'd like to introduce our panelists. If they could still come to the stage for us, that'd be fantastic. Michael Roberts, CEO, HSBC USA. Maha Al-Katan, Chief People and Sustainability Officer, DP World in the UAE. Nompilo Marafo, Group Chief Sustainability and Corporate Affairs Officer, MTN. And Diego Alfonso Juarez Ruiz, Tec de Monterrey University student. Welcome to all four of you. Let me start with you, if I may, Michael, on this. And this is a very important statistic to watch. When we look at the mean gender pay gap, which you're very aware of, the progress from 2017 to 2020, it has improved by 3 percentage points, 28 to 31. There's also, of course, and you know this as a HeForShe champion, as well as the CEO of HSBC, you have committed to achieving a goal of 35% female representation in senior leadership roles by 2025. What do you perceive as the objectives, the obstacles to getting to those points, to the achievement of the goal of gender equality in the finance industry? You can see by the very numbers, this is an uphill battle.
And thank you, Richard. And first of all, wonderful to be here. This is a great event. And this initiative is so critical to all of us in this room, I know, but for everyone else around the world. And we're just very thrilled to be a part of it, in particular with such an international and very global group of people we have up on the stage with me. So as you mentioned, this is something that in this industry, clearly we need to make more progress. For most of you, you think of bankers, and historically it's been white guys with top hats and cigars. And effectively, that's what it was for most of its industrial history. So when I joined the bank, or banking 35 years ago, it was primarily white male. And it is still today, but we are making progress. That is the good news. Richard mentioned some of it, but we obviously have a lot more to do. Now, I think if you look at it, it really comes down to just a multi-variable sort of solution that you have to go through on a very consistent, constant basis. We have to go out and make sure that young women want to go into our industry. And for a long time, we never reached out. So we have to reach out. We have to tell them what the industry is. We have to say it is a welcoming place, please come. And that has to start very early. So now today, we go out and bring in high school students at a pretty young age to tell them this is what they should be thinking about. We want to make sure they're prepared when they come in. So what type of courses do you need to take both in high school and college so that you are more prepared, so that they come in with an ability to progress as much as possible. Once they arrive, we need to make sure that we provide them both with training on how to be a banker, but also training on how to succeed in a large corporation. There's a lot of things that people are not told, and I think in particular for women, we need to be just very, very upfront. These are the things that you're going to have to look out for. Let's be honest. These are some challenges that you're going to have to face because they're not actually told that. Critically, they have to have mentors, and those mentors should be both men and women, just not one. And that's something that we constantly promote and need to get better at. And that leads to the most important element of this, and Richard, you mentioned it earlier because of the pay gap issue, representation. Representation defines pay gap. It's a mathematical number, so the more women you have in the higher positions, the less the pay gap. And so that's really what is critical for us to do. Representation is really underpinned by a couple of things. One, recruiting women at all levels. And so today we really focus on it to make sure that everything we do, all the recruiting we do, is done in a way that is as equal as it possibly can be. Equal slates, making sure that there are women on slates for every job. Because it's very easy when you ask someone to go out and hire someone from outside in the professional world. They will hire whoever is someone that looks like them and that they're very comfortable with. You also, at the same time, make sure that we have a process of promotion that is very transparent. And so we use data. We use data to look at what we're doing to make sure that that process is as fair and as equitable as possible. And then lastly, very, very important, is attrition. Attrition is probably the biggest issue that we face today, in particular for women who are having children, have children, or are caregivers. And we've got to solve this. And that is something we're doing, hopefully, with now hybrid working. We are committed to have hybrid working. I think it's a game changer, frankly. We have policies that we've introduced around maternity and paternity, which I think are very good, very helpful. The thing, however, that I'm most challenged with, and I talk to my fellow CEOs, however, it's really the environment. Because we can have lots of good policies, but if we don't have the environment that really supports those policies, they won't work. And those policies coming down to making men support what the women need in the workplace to actually stay in the workplace. And that is the greatest challenge that I have. That really comes down to both training those men, making sure that they, and this is the word that we use a lot around, are allies, and they can understand if they are not supportive, and that may not even be overtly not supportive. It's often being, you know, I'm sorry you're leaving so early to pick up your kids. Why are you doing that? It's those slight things that I just talked to a group of senior women very recently. That's what the biggest issue is today, to be able to get into that level of detail. And so we're trying very hard to make sure we do that. And it's really making sure that it's allyship, that the men understand what that means. Because I imagine when they're called by their wives to say, you have to go pick up your kids, they'll do it. But when a woman says they have to do that, they don't understand why. And that's just unacceptable to me. So it's all those things. And I'd say, lastly, Richard, all this comes down to not only is this good and just, and we should do this because this is what we should do, it's also good for business. So there is a business imperative that we get this right. Because our customers want it, it makes sense, it's how we actually do better, and we have lots of case examples of that. And so we're going to try hard. It's a long journey, a journey that we're on, but we're committed. I'm committed personally. I have daughters, and so this is very, very important for me personally. And so we will continue on the march, hopefully quicker and with more impact.
Michael, thank you for that. And the very notes that you're bringing up about operationalizing in finance what can seem to be quite a heady objective. So thank you for your leadership in that. Maha, moving to you in your leadership at DP World, a global corporation that focuses on logistics. And I don't need to tell you this, it is very much a male-dominated industry. And just some statistics about your efforts and what you've done at DP World. DP World's 2022 Women on Board initiative prepared women for director roles, leading to 12 appointments in 33 seats. And that's a 38% increase. Some of the things that you have been doing at DP World. As a champion yourself for gender equality, and DP World supporting you in doing that, can you tell us what are the envisioned advantages of a more gender equal business and a more gender equal DP World?
So, first of all, thank you, UN Women, for the invitation. I don't think I don't want to talk about the advantages of more gender equal workplace. I think we're beyond this conversation. Everyone in this room today knows why should we have a gender equal representation, why it's good to have gender equality in a workforce. The question should be more around how can we achieve that? How can we make the workforce inclusive? How can we bring in more women in the workforce? And I think we are living in the right era for this. We're living in a time where technology and automation are disrupting every aspect of our life, including the compositions of work. You just mentioned DP World has been traditionally in a very male-dominated sector. We're a very male-dominated industry. More than 80% of our jobs are in operations, and they're physically demanding jobs, which usually discourage women from entering these roles. With the digital disruption and the automation, the industry is moving from a manpower industry to a brain power industry. The jobs are becoming more and more gender neutral. I'll share an example. In the past, a crane driver's job, a crane operator's role in DP World, in a port, used to be operating a crane sitting 60 meters above ground and moving hundreds of tons of containers from a ship to a yard women were discouraged from applying from this role for the right reasons. When we built our Terminal 3 in Jabal Ali, we used automation in our advantage. We automated this job. Today, the crane driver's job is being done from an automated air-conditioned room behind the computer screen. We have today more than 90% of the crane drivers in Jabal Ali Terminal 3 females, 22 of them, who traditionally would not have applied for this role, which was a very heavy-duty, physically demanding job.
Oh, exciting examples of what you're doing to be gender neutral. Nampilo, let's talk here. You're also a HeForShe champion for gender equality at MTN, and MTN has made a number of commitments. One of them that you can talk about very well is how to get women and girls to participate in the digital economy, how that they can be empowered. As we see in so many places around the world, I've seen it in my reporting, where there is a clear distinction when it comes to a daughter or a son and a decision being made about who gets to use this. How do we get to be disruptive respectfully?
Thank you so much for inviting me. It's a pleasure for me to be here today. For MTN Group, so the topic talks about respectfully being disruptive. So this made it very difficult for me to come and talk about stats in terms of what we've done, because there's an easy part. So the most difficult part for a HeForShe champion today of what we need to talk about is that how can we be truly disruptive, right? So for MTN, we started this journey quite a few years ago. We have met our targets almost. We said we want to have achieved gender equality by 2030. We're almost there, ahead of 2030. We spoke about gender equality. We spoke about pay gap as well, which we have easily fixed, because if you look at it, for me, if you look at issues of gender equality, it moves away from being an issue to being an issue of will. If the organization has got a will to do it, it becomes a bit easier to get there. So for MTN, it's more about our value system than something just we count as part of our strategy, which has been important. I'll just call out that bit for a moment. So every month at MTN, we literally sit and have a conversation around how many women have we brought into the organization. The reason we do that is, if you look at the stats, she mentioned it, which was quite important, that we need to move away from talking about these are the numbers. We need to talk about how do we fix it. Because sometimes we go and devise strategies as companies and we shelve them, and no one actually gets to implementation stage. So it's been very important for us that we actually know what's happening. So at MTN, for instance, if we agree that we're going to have a certain number of women in certain positions, it could take 12 months to fill in a position. We insist that you will find a female, right? That's important. So, but we've had to reflect a bit deeper in terms of how come with all those initiatives, especially in the continent of Africa, we're still not seeing people that look like myself joining ICT organizations. So we have a lot of programs in ICT ecosystem, skilling, et cetera, And just to give a bit of a case study, I recently attended a graduation in one of our markets where we had deployed a digital skills academy. Out of 200 people and pupils that graduated, less than 30% were female. This tells us the significant problem that happens in our communities, which will make the notion of leaving no one behind very difficult, unless we really try to put some effort in terms of understanding why girls are not even taking the opportunity to participate. So for me, that's where it's critical. If we're going to be disruptive, we need to understand the challenges that women have still in 2023, still today, for them not to be able to participate, even when we think that the opportunity is there for them to participate. So that's important. And I'm saying it's important, why? you look at the continent of Africa, which is predominantly where MTN operates. If we're going to have women in our workplace, we need to make sure that the ecosystem from where we recruit from is ready for us to get the women inside.
Thank you, Nampilo. And I think you and Diego have been talking, because now we're going to go to Diego, who at his university, he managed to direct the survey project called Te Escuchamos, Violencia de Género en el Campus, which means we are listening, gender-based violence on campus. And you had a direct impact on 6,400 students. Is he being disruptive? And it's the beginning of developing those allies that you're talking about, Nampilo, right at that level in education. Diego, to you on this, and yes, this happens often. You get to speak for a generation. How do we, from your perspective and your experience on campus, need to be respectfully disruptive?
Good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here representing Mexico and also the different objectives done by Tecnológico de Monterrey in alliance with UN Women. So firstly, I must say that I admire completely the work my generation has done towards pushing back on this pushback, right? And I do believe that we bring a trend of speaking up against gender inequality. However, we should not consider the whole work of generation inequality as a whole, but instead as a progress from within. Data from our institution shows that while 97% of our students understand different gender identities, not even half of them believe in the usage of inclusive language or other means in order to make those gender identities feel included. So we see that generation equality is still something that keeps on building. Right. While mentioning that, my generation is extremely successful in pointing out that older generations should listen to our generation without any assumptions of what the youth needs. Once we feel, as a generation, that we are listened to, we shift from a negative disruption towards a more respectful disruption that is seen as an equal in a conversation where we are able to collaborate horizontally, right? On the same topic that generations are in polar opposites, I should congratulate the work that older generations have been doing fighting against gender inequality. However, our failing so far has come from conformism, right? We should never stay on the mindset that what we do right now is enough. There's always a way to improve our line of action, and simply the words "just enough" do not fit the gender equality agenda. On also the topic of projects that are respectfully disruptive, I would like to mention the same survey you mentioned, Te Escuchamos, which was presented by the Student Participation Committee with a special direction from Ana Paula Mellon and Carla Hernandez. And in said project, we were able to understand that the authorities at our institution were looking at our proposals for gender equality as disruptive for them being too loud. So instead, we shifted towards data analysis, towards different mathematical ways to present our information, and we were able to represent over 22,000 students actually active on campus and personally tell the testimonies of 6,000 of them. This way, we understood that being respectfully disruptive is finding the language where you meet halfway between generations. And I encourage younger generations to find this language that the people in power understand, that they accept. Maybe it's data analysis, maybe it's something else, but use it in order to create projects that are accepted by them. And also use it to create strategic alliances, just like the HeForShe Alliance.
Thank you so much, Diego. You got a lot of work in front of you, and based on what you've done so far, we're looking forward to that. Everybody on this panel. Michael, we're going to have to close in 2 minutes, but I did want to get your advice. If you were to be speaking to a group of CEOs, which there are some here, what would be the tip, the practical suggestion that you could give from one to another, how to be respectfully disruptive in the boardroom?
Yeah, I think, first of all, you have to set the tone, and I think you have to really be fully committed to it, and you have to be willing to really push that and be respectfully disruptive. And sometimes that's very unfamiliar, and sometimes it's very uncomfortable. But that's what you have to do to make progress. You have to create that tension, and it's for not only a good cause, it will be better for you in the long run as a company. So do it with confidence, do it with sense of purpose, but also do it with the consistency and that level of commitment, both as an individual and as a company. And I think if you do all that, you will get the results, you will get the rewards that comes along with it.
Thank you so much. Maha, your suggestion from, as a leader at your organization to others, how can we operationalize this? What's the tip?
So there is no one-size-fits-all. My challenges are different than their challenges. But I think what we all need to do is we need to make sure that we remove all the unconscious biases. We need to level the playing field. We really need to create an inclusive environment and look at talent as a talent, regardless of their gender. I think that's where we start. And then after that, every company needs to do a data-based analysis of their gaps and their opportunities. As you mentioned, when we did our data-based analysis, we found out that there is a gap in the number of women on our operational boards. And based on that, we put a solution for it. So definitely no one size fits all, but we can all create an inclusive environment for everyone. Thank you.
That reminds me of something. We cannot be bystanders anymore. And Nampilo, you were saying that. We need to stand up. And there's something that I learned from in the last 2 years called bystander intervention, and it has 5 Ds in it. And it's ways that we can do something every day, whether it's at the corporate level or it's something that we see when we walk outside of 1356 Broadway, if I got the address correctly. That is important, right? And that's what we need to do in business, and the two of you as leaders need to do it. Nampilo, what would be your suggestion in 30 seconds if you can?
Yeah, so for me, personally, my suggestion will be that we need to be brave. We need to have a will to call it out. There's so much that comes with incorporates of like, you're afraid to speak up, you're afraid to say it when it's happening. Mm-hmm. And it's a teachable moment. Because if you're a woman, you know when things are getting out of hand. And even if you're a man, you know when you're being inappropriate. Calling it out and being disruptive is very important.
Teachable, so key, that we can share with others. It has to be a teachable moment. Diego, you've showed us how you're just respectfully disruptive. What would you say to others who might want to do this in 30 seconds? I want to be like Diego.
Thank you. To everyone, I would like to say just to listen to those who dare disrupt. And to the people that hold positions of power, we need to understand that in 10, 20, or 50 years from now, people will not remember our organizations for being innovative, but rather they will remember them for how we addressed or didn't address gender violence.
Thank you to all 4 of our panelists to kick us off, learning how to be respectfully disruptive. I very much appreciate all of your perspectives.